Hello and welcome to 5 for Friday for this first Friday of September and the start of our Labor Day holiday weekend, September 1st, 2023. Hopefully you aren't watching this until after you've had a relaxing weekend with family and friends and taken the time to appreciate your ability to do so thanks to the efforts of those who came before us that wanted fair wages and time off. So perhaps I should say happy Tuesday? Lots of fun topics this week, and guess what? Hold on to your chair. No AI this week. I know, right? Wondering what we could possibly talk about without AI? Well, let's get started then with topic number 1, tiny homes. Several stories in the news about ADUs, accessory dwelling units, and tiny homes these days, including homes that are 3D printed and tiny home kits for sale at Home Depot, Amazon, and Costco. If the big retail stores see this as a trend, then this is likely just beyond a signal of change. Of course, rising mortgage rates and housing costs make these more appealing than ever, so the time is right for tiny homes. Do you offer any products or services that could take advantage of this growing industry? Time to start thinking about that. A few more tiny home related stories in the newsletter, but you get the main point. All right, moving on to story number 2, theft, virtual and IRL in real life. Disclaimer, AI comes up in this topic, it's just not the main topic of the story. So let's start with those in real life thefts. Stores like Dick's Sporting Goods and Target are having a real issue with inventory shrink, meaning theft. Target is expected to lose $1.2 billion in theft this year, and Dick's profits are down 23% compared to last year due to theft. Moving on to virtual theft. Novelists and journalists are not happy with AI tools that are using their own work as training materials for their wordsmithing computer programs so that AI can write a novel in the style of Margaret Atwood, for example. And when it comes to the news, the AI tools are just rewording news stories like they're high school students trying to avoid accusations of plagiarism. So will we stand for this? No? How do we stop it? Don't know. What else is being stolen these days? Your work-life balance if you work for a big company, that's what. Those return to office orders are coming from elite, often male CEOs who prioritize work over work-life balance and think the only way to prove you're productive is to show up. Now, maybe that last story is less of a theft than the others, but it all ties into a shift in values that seems to be coming to a head. Will we just tolerate the theft of items, IP, in our time? Or will we fight back? All right, let's move on to slightly related story number 3. Private equity is evil? Okay, I'll say it. I'm somewhat, or pretty much, biased against private equity firms that seem to put profits over people consistently. Some examples in the news recently include private equity buying up all the anesthesiology practices in Colorado so they can raise rates, or private equity providing poor health care for prisoners and then splitting the company in half post-lawsuit, leaving the debt and liabilities with the original company that declared bankruptcy and can't pay the families, and then the other new part of the company that took all the assets and re-signed hundreds of millions of dollars in contracts with the prisons across the country. Wow. I was shocked to find out that sandwich chain Subway was sold to a massive private equity firm that owns more restaurant chains than I realized. I'll be curious to follow this and see how the change in ownership impacts franchise owners. A few more stories in the newsletter on private equity, but also a couple new ways to fund business growth or the sale of your business for small business owners, including crowdfunding up to $5 million a year from your loyal customers, and a new firm that buys small businesses from retiring business owners and then slowly sells the business to the employees, offering an affordable transfer of ownership. An interesting model that's now on my radar to keep following. All right, moving on to story number 4, big versus little. Big companies typically have the advantage over little ones, and sometimes it's the consumers that lose. For example, Hawaiian Electric supplies power to 95% of Hawaii and may be connected to those horrific Maui wildfires. Utilities in general come from for-profit companies that have a near monopoly, which doesn't motivate them to be very price conscious or focused on climate change. Will this change? I'm not optimistic. And it turns out that big companies are taking advantage of crowdfunding sites typically used by small startups to get funding for new products. But the big companies are turning to these sites for market research and customer validation, even though they also get the money from the individual investors. Is that okay? Opinions are mixed. One frustrating story about big, in this case super rich, men taking advantage of little, in this case low-income employees, At an ultra-exclusive summer camp for powerful American men, that's it, men, no women, the rich man camp paid poorly and didn't allow overtime or breaks, so the employees are suing. Stay tuned on that one. Again, more stories in the newsletter, but I didn't think it was big enough. I think this is big enough to prove my clear bias against big business. I'm sure some of them are good and not purely driven by profits, right? All right, let's move on to our final story, story number 5, strange new foods. Here they are. See what you think. Mushroom chocolates. In other words, chocolate bars with mushrooms in them. Plant-based ribs with edible bones made of soy-based plant protein. Parmesan cheese with edible microchips to track their authenticity. Luxury ice with etchings and unusual shapes in super clear water. And my personal favorite, Eggo waffles brunch in a jar with flavors of buttered Eggo waffles with syrup and a side of bacon combined with alcohol. Who wouldn't love that? A couple more examples in the newsletter, but nothing like that combination. So perhaps it's time for all of us to be more brunch in a jar creative and collaborative with our own products and services. It's worth thought. All right, and then finally, one quick yet super frustrating bonus story I call the "How can this be true?" story. 91% of women surveyed said they received romantic advances or sexually inappropriate messages on LinkedIn. LinkedIn, at least once. This was a survey of over 1,000 women from ages 27 to 42 who are regular LinkedIn users. I cannot believe this. My assumption is that about 1% of men or less are responsible for all those messages. If you see something inappropriate, report it. This is crazy stuff. All right, thanks for joining me for this week's 5 for Friday Labor Day weekend issue. If you want to get all the links, all the resources, and my full take on these topics, be sure to check out my paid subscription newsletter that gives you everything in the video and more. You can find me on my website at learnstartgrow.com or sign up through my YouTube videos at Learn Start Grow on YouTube channel. Thanks, have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week.